In 1870, the United States Census Bureau told its enumerators how to classify frontier women. It said a woman who broke sod behind oxen from April through October was not a farmer. It said a woman feeding 20 miners 3 meals a day had no occupation. It said a woman earning more than her husband by washing shirts in a gold camp was simply keeping house. Your great-grandmother worked 16-hour days anyway because the harvest did not care what Washington wrote on a form. Number 7 on this list kept a fire alive for 6 weeks straight because one mistake meant her family starved before spring. Number 1 is a job no one was paid for, no one was trained for, and no one could refuse. These 15 jobs were not forgotten because women stopped doing them. They were forgotten because an entire industry was built on pretending frontier women never worked at all. Subscribe, because what you are about to hear is not Hollywood myth. It is the real American frontier. Number 15, the camp laundress. At Fort Laramie, Wyoming Territory in the 1860s, a row of tents behind the barracks housed the wives who washed for wages. Your great-grandmother hauled 50 gallons of water a day from the nearest creek, scrubbed wool on a corrugated board until lye cracked her knuckles open by October, and worked in steam that blistered her forearms through July. She charged $2 to $4 per soldier per month. An Army private earned $13. A laundress serving 15 men brought home triple what the soldiers took home. In the California gold camps of 1849, women charged $8 to wash a single shirt. The Army put your great-grandmother on the roster. The census called her unemployed. She was too busy working to notice. That laundress worked from dawn until her arms gave out. But when the sun set and there was no kerosene within 40 miles, another job started. It smelled worse. Number 14, the tallow chandler. After the fall slaughter on a Nebraska homestead, your great-grandmother collected every scrap of beef fat and boiled it in a kettle over an outdoor fire for hours. The smell hung over the homestead for days, rancid, greasy, thick enough to taste. She dipped cotton wicks into the melted fat, pulled them out, let them cool, and dipped again. 15 to 30 dips per candle. A winter supply took weeks of standing over that kettle. Store-bought candles cost 25 cents a pound. Her family burned 3 a night through 6 dark months and could not afford that. Tallow cost nothing if you slaughtered your own animals. The price was your great-grandmother's hands. Every hour her children could read after sundown existed because she rendered it into being. She made the light. She made the soap. And when the hides stacked up, she did something most modern leather workers would refuse to attempt. Number 13, the hide dresser. After a fall hunt, your great-grandmother scraped every trace of flesh from a deer hide with a dull blade. She soaked it in wood ash water for days, scraped the hair side clean, and then came brain tanning. She mashed the deer's own brain, mixed it with warm water, and worked the paste into the leather by hand. The hide was stretched, twisted, and smoked over 4 days. One dressed hide produced moccasins, gloves, and barter goods. Your great-grandmother turned a dead animal into shoes for her children using the animal's own brain. The United States Leather Company controlled roughly 60% of the American leather market by 1893. A hide shipped to Chicago earned $1 to $2. The tannery sold the finished product for $8 to $15. By 1900, home tanning was called primitive. Today, brain-tanned leather sells for $200 to $500 per hide. The corporation needed her to forget how. But the hide trade was not the strangest thing taken from frontier wives. Number 12 is a job so unusual that most people alive today do not believe it existed. Number 12. The bone picker. After the Great Buffalo Slaughter of the 1870s, the plains were littered with millions of skeletons. Fertilizer makers and sugar refineries bought bleached bones by the ton. Railroad agents at Dodge City paid $6 to $12 per ton. Your great-grandmother hitched a wagon and spent days loading bones by hand, each one pried from the earth with bare fingers. Between 1872 and 1890, roughly 2 million tons of buffalo bones were shipped east. Bone ricks at depot towns stood 12 feet high and ran hundreds of yards long. Your great-grandmother loaded the remains of a vanished species into a wagon because her family needed $12. She did not mourn the buffalo that day. She was too busy feeding her children with what was left of them. She gathered the bones. She dressed the hides. She boiled the tallow. But once a year, a job arrived that dwarfed them all. It lasted 2 weeks. Number 11, the harvest cook. When the threshing crew arrived at a Kansas wheat farm in the 1880s, your great-grandmother became a restaurant operator overnight. She cooked over a wood stove in a kitchen that hit 120 degrees in August. She rose at 3 in the morning and served 5 meals a day. A crew of 20 men consumed 40 pounds of meat, 15 loaves of bread, dozens of pies, and gallons of coffee daily. Every item came from raw ingredients. No store, no refrigeration. A poor table meant the threshers went elsewhere next year. Your crop rotted in the field. Your great-grandmother fed 30 men 5 times a day for 2 weeks, slept 3 hours a night, and never once called it a job. She called it harvest. She cooked for 30. She washed for 20. And the one ingredient running through nearly every job on this list cost her nothing to make and everything to get wrong. Number 10. The lye boiler. Your great-grandmother packed wood ash into a hopper, poured water over it slowly, and collected the liquid that dripped out. Potassium hydroxide, LYE. She tested the strength by floating a feather in the solution. If it dissolved, the lye was ready. She combined it with rendered tallow and boiled for hours. Concentrated lye causes immediate chemical burns on skin contact. She did this without gloves, without eye protection, and without running water to wash off a spill. She tested it with her own hands because she had nothing else. Procter & Gamble launched Ivory soap in 1879, positioning homemade soap as harsh and old-fashioned. By 1890, they spent over $100,000 a year on advertising to convince your great-grandmother that what she made for free was inferior to what she now had to buy. Today, artisan soap bars sell for $8 to $12 using the same process she used in a kettle. The soap companies sold her the soap. But before any of that arrived, she did something to the land itself that broke strong men and stronger horses. Number 9. The SOD breaker. Under the Homestead Act of 1862, a claimant had 5 years to improve the land. Improvement meant breaking sod. Prairie sod was a mat of roots 4 inches thick. A breaking plow weighed 60 to 125 pounds and required oxen to drag it through. Your great-grandmother walked behind it, fighting the roots for 10 hours a day. In Custer County, Nebraska, in the 1870s, roughly 1 in 10 homestead claims were filed by women. Unmarried women, widows, women whose husbands had not arrived. Your great-grandmother proved up on that claim with her own plow and her own sweat. The land office never recorded her name on the labor. She broke the sod. She planted the crop. And when the sheep were sheared, another job consumed every winter evening for 6 months. Number 8. The wool walker. Your great-grandmother washed raw wool in lye water, picked it clean by hand, carded it between wire-tooth paddles and spun it for hours to produce yarn for a single garment. She dyed it with walnut hulls, goldenrod, pokeberry, or iron rust. She wove it on a loom for days per bolt. Then came fulling. The cloth was soaked and stomped by foot for hours to thicken. On Appalachian homesteads in Kentucky through the 1840s, this was the only way cloth entered the world. Store-bought fabric sold for 10 to 50 cents a yard. A family of 6 needed 100 yards a year. Your great-grandmother wore clothes she made from an animal she raised. On grass she grew, on land she broke. Every thread passed through her hands. She raised it, spun it, wove it, and wore it. And when the hog was slaughtered in November, she started the only job on this list that took 6 weeks to finish. Number 7. The smokehouse keeper. After the fall hog killing, your great-grandmother hung hundreds of pounds of pork in the smokehouse rafters and built a slow fire of hickory underneath. The heat had to hold between 80 and 100 degrees for weeks. Too hot, and the fat rendered. Too cold, and the meat rotted from the inside. She rose in the dark through December and January to keep it alive. She did not own a thermometer. She knew the heat by feel and the smoke by color. The Federal Meat Inspection Act of 1906 required licensed facilities and federal inspectors. By 1910, the Big Four meat packers controlled 90% of the interstate meat trade. Your great-grandmother smoked pork that lasted through a Dakota winter with no inspector and no barcode. Her children are the proof it worked. The meat packers took the smokehouse. Number 6 is the one business no corporation could steal. Number 6, the boarding house keeper. In Leadville, Colorado in the 1870s, your great-grandmother turned her home into a commercial operation. She charged $5 to $8 per week for a bed and 3 meals a day. She fed 10 to 30 miners every meal. She washed linens, settled disputes, extended credit, and collected debts. A successful keeper earned $200 to $500 a month, more than most men under her roof. She rose before dawn and collapsed after midnight. Your great-grandmother ran a hotel, a restaurant, and a bank out of her front room with no employees and no day off. The men called her Ma. They never called her boss. She was both. She fed them and housed them. But when one came to her door shaking with fever at 2 in the morning, there was no doctor. There was only the woman down the road who knew what grew in the creek bed. In the hollows of eastern Kentucky in the 1840s, your great-grandmother was the nearest thing to a physician for 30 miles. She knew willow bark tea could cut fever. Its active compound became the basis for aspirin. She knew yarrow stopped bleeding, elderberry eased coughs, and comfrey knit bone. She gathered, dried, and stored every remedy herself. She treated burns, snake bites, infected wounds, and croup. The nearest doctor was a 2-day ride and $5 away. She charged nothing or took a chicken. She went every time. Your great-grandmother carried a pharmacy in her apron pocket and a medical education in her memory. No license, no degree, just generations of women who noticed what worked and taught their daughters. She healed them with what grew in the yard. And the entire time, she ran a financial operation so quiet that most historians missed it entirely. Number 4, the EGG money banker. On a typical Iowa homestead in the 1880s, the husband's cash came once a year at harvest. Everything between was paid with egg money. Your great-grandmother sold eggs at 8 to 20 cents a dozen and butter at 15 to 30 cents a pound. A wife managing 40 hens and a churn generated $50 to $150 a year. When total household cash ran $300, her egg money covered half. She kept accounts in her head and negotiated at the general store counter. Your great-grandmother funded half the household on chicken eggs and 10-cent butter, and never appeared in a financial record. The government called her husband the provider. She was the one making sure there was something to provide. She ran the money, the medicine, the kitchen, and the smokehouse. And when November came and the hog had to die, and her husband was not home, she walked into the yard. Number 3. The slaughter hand. Your great-grandmother stuck the hog with a blade to the jugular. She bled it, scalded it, scraped every hair from the skin, and broke 300 pounds of pork into hams, shoulders, loins, and fatback. Nothing wasted. The head boiled for head cheese. The feet were pickled. The fat was rendered. The bladder was cleaned and given to the children as a ball. On Missouri homesteads through the 1870s, women's diaries describe butchering alone. Your great-grandmother killed a 300-pound hog, dressed it out, and had the hams in salt before sundown. She did not enjoy it. She did not hesitate. The distance between those two things is something most people alive today will never understand. She killed it, butchered it, smoked it, and served it. But there was one job she could be called to at any hour of any night, and she could never say no. Number 2. The granny midwife. When a woman went into labor, a rider came through the darkness to your great-grandmother's door. She saddled her horse and followed in winter, in rain, through country that held wolves and worse. Her saddlebag held rags, string, a knife, whiskey, and dried herbs. She handled breech births and cord complications without surgical tools, without anesthesia, and without a hospital within 2 days' ride. In the hollows of Kentucky, granny midwives delivered nearly every baby born in the region. Some delivered over 1,000 in a lifetime. Payment was a ham, a sack of cornmeal, or nothing at all. She stayed until the baby cried. She was never once called doctor. Every job on this list your great-grandmother did while her community was alive and growing. But there was one more, the hardest one. Number 1. The laying out woman. When someone died on the frontier, a specific woman was sent for. She was chosen because she could walk into a room where a body lay and do what needed doing without falling apart. She brought clean cloths, a basin, and a comb. She closed the eyes. She tied the jaw shut. She washed the body and dressed the dead in their best clothes. She laid out children. She laid out women who died in childbirth, women she may have delivered as midwife hours before. In some settlements, 1 child in 4 did not survive to 5. Half the bodies she prepared were small. She organized the wake. She sat with the family through the night. She received no payment, no title, no recognition. She went home and scrubbed her hands and said nothing until someone knocked again. The average funeral in America today costs over $7,000. The laying out woman charged nothing because preparing the dead was not a transaction. It was an obligation owed to the living. Your great-grandmother was laid out by a woman who knew her name and cried while washing her face for the last time. The laundress, the harvest cook, the root doctor, and the midwife kept people alive. The laying out woman was there when the keeping failed. She was the last woman to touch your great-grandmother's face, and nobody wrote down her name. These women were not helpless wives waiting for rescue. They were the economy, the pharmacy, and the funeral home of every frontier settlement in America. If you want more real frontier history, subscribe and watch the video appearing on your screen right now. That work did not die. It just went quiet because someone profited every time you forgot your great-grandmother ever did it. It is time to start remembering.